Welcome to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob Dagate, and it's now my pleasure to be joined by Lafourche Parish President Archie Chaisson. Thank you very much for joining us, taking out the time once again to give us an update on how Lafourche Parish is doing.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. Good to see you again.
Okay, and we're talking a little bit about a continuing work that's got to take place because of all the the hard hit that Hurricane Ida gave this area. Specifically, one of the things that I believe is involved is damage assessment by certain contractors. Can you explain a little bit about that for the people know what's going on?
Yeah, Jacob. We after hurricanes and major disasters, we saw it after the floods of 2016 up in Livingston. Because of the flood insurance program, the federal government requires us to do what they call substantial damage assessments. So we brought in a contractor, CSRS, who's a consultant out of Baton Rouge, who actually did a lot of the damage assessments after the floods up in Livingston, to come in and handle it for us. It's we're figuring somewhere around 10,000 homes had some sort of damage. So for us to do that internally with our staff gets kind of tight. It's going to be FEMA reimbursed, so it's easy to bring in an outside contractor to do it. So they've begun to reach out to the public. We have to touch just about every home inside of a flood zone, or what we call a special flood hazard area. So they're going to come out, they're going to call you, set up an appointment to come do both an inspection of the interior and the exterior of your house. Now, by no means do you have to let them in your house or even let them on your property. You can choose to just let them do it from the street, and we'll get the best amount of data that we can. The hope is that you do let them in, and we can get some good quantifiable data about what's going on. So we're doing a kind of media blitz to touch as many people as we can to let them know this is coming. They actually started doing some call center work late last week, I think either Friday or Saturday, and then we're starting to slowly see people hit the ground. So if you get a call from a weird number, we worked with them actually today to switch over to a 985 area code number, so people are a little bit more apt to answering it instead of a 1866 number that comes probably as a potential spam on your caller ID. On your phones. But they're doing a blitz of calls. We're doing a blitz of letters to every home inside those flood zones to let you know this is coming. And then you will slowly start to see contractors actually walking the streets. You'll see them in the high resolution vest, the lime green or orange vest with hard hats. They're all going to have ID tags that have their picture, their name, and a picture of the Lafourche Parish logo that says they are a Lafourche Parish authorized contractor walking the streets. So don't get alarmed. We got a bunch of calls to the sheriff's office this weekend in our office, trying to figure out why these random people were walking around the neighborhoods. But it's a couple of fold. It helps us with FEMA funding. The more damage that we can physically prove there was, that it's not just guesstimates based on what we call windshield tours of neighborhoods, the better chance we are at getting more federal funding to help either rebuild these structures, elevate them, acquire them, or just overall federal funding for Ida response in general. But then it's a FEMA rule that after something like this happens, because of the National Flood Insurance Program, because Lafourche is a participant inside the National Flood Insurance Program, it's something that we have to do. Look, I don't like to send these people out and invade people's privacy and look at their homes and possibly cause their home to be considered substantially damaged. And then if it's over 50% of the value of their house, then that entire structure, whatever's left of it, if you're going to try to rebuild it, has to be brought up to code, whether we're talking plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and even elevation. So some houses that were grandfathered in that were slab on grade homes should or could have the possibility of being elevated. It's not something that I take pride in doing. I know that in a time when we're struggling post-storm, this is the last thing people want to have to worry about. But the federal government says we have to do it, and we're trying to make it as easy as possible in the residents so they don't have to be burdened with it. That's why we're trying to use call centers and setting up appointments. We're working with our contractor to make sure that they keep those appointments once they make them, because again, we don't want our residents burdened with it. And at the end of the day, we're going to do everything we can from a parish standpoint to make sure that we are making the right call as to these items are truly substantially damaged or not. Again, not to have to put people through some type of burden and reconstruction process.
Now, you said it takes place in the flood zones. I know there's different types. You have A and C, and I always get them mixed up. I know there's one that you have to have if you get a mortgage, and I think that may be A. I'm not if that's correct, but is it for both of those areas, or is it just for the
so
more
it's
serious?
only there's 4 different, I guess there's 5 different flood zones, right? There's an X zone, which absolutely they tell you has 0 flood risk, but we know that's not always the case. There's always a flood risk, especially here in South Louisiana. There's a B and a C zone, which is a little bit higher risk than an X, but still not a requirement that you have a flood insurance program. Those are not considered special flood hazard areas. Your special flood hazard areas are going to be your A zones, your AZ zones, and then what we call V zones, which are velocity zones, which are typically around the coastline. So Grand Isle is a V zone, Ports of Port Fourchon are a V zone because they're so heavy coastally or so heavy on the coast. So we're going to be touching everybody in those A zones and those AE zones mostly. There are very few structures that carry insurance in V zones, mostly because it's so darn expensive once you get that close to the coast, especially in those velocity zones. So we think there's about 15,000 homes inside the special flood hazard area. We think we're probably going to have to, through pictometry, we can cull some of those down. We know which ones are completely gone. There's no point wasting time to go actually put your boots on the ground on the street when you know the house based on the aerial photography is gone. So we're looking at probably 5,000 inspections that we're going to have to do somewhere in there of actually putting people in the street on the ground and actually looking at structures. So again, we're trying to make this as burdenless as possible on the resident and having our contractor do all the legwork as far as setting up appointments and getting on the ground and actually getting it done.
And what's that contractor's name again, in case they get a phone call?
So it's a company called CSRS. If you check out our website or our Facebook page, Monday, we posted a bunch of frequently asked questions, those FAQs on our website, telling you a little bit about the company, about the substantial damage assessment program, and what you could expect from here on out if you get one of those letters, and how we're going to handle that process post-storm and going into the future as the assessments are done and we get that data back on what homes are substantially damaged. But CSR is a great company. We worked with them before in the parish and have a lot of experience doing these substantial damage assessments. So it made sense to bring them in.
Talking a little bit about the continuation from the discussions of Hurricane Ida damage. Of course, that storm created a tremendous amount of debris, both in public areas and on private landowners' areas, and it's a huge task, I guess, to get all that material cleaned up. That's an ongoing process. Can you tell me a little bit about what's taking place with that?
Yeah, Jacob, we've hit probably that 1 million cubic yard mark, which is probably half of where we are. We're probably about 1.5 or 2 million cubic yards on the ground, and that number is going to hopefully not grow too much more because we're hopefully getting toward the end of the debris process, but still a ton of debris on the ground and coming out. Now that insurance adjusters have hit some of the hardest hit areas of our community, and people are finally getting into their homes, starting to gut things, starting to rework and demolish some things, those debris piles tend to grow a little bit. We saw that the last couple of weeks. So we've made some pretty good progress. We probably have about 40,000 cubic yards of debris still on the ground in the areas north of the intercoastal, and probably about 90 to 100,000 cubic yards on the bottom half that we think we're going to be able to pick up before Thanksgiving. We are going to give our debris contractors a little bit of a break. Those guys have worked what will probably be 90 days straight post-event. So the week of Thanksgiving, you're going to see those guys disappear for a little bit, go back home to wherever they came from and see their family and friends, and then come back the very first, I think it's actually the 1st of December, that Wednesday or that Monday, whatever the day is, and come back in and start the process all over again. Twofold: one, it gives them a break, like I talked about, but two, it allows those debris piles to grow again. It allows people to do that last little bit of cleanup in their yards, the last cleanup in their houses, finish gut what they need to gut, and get that stuff to the road. I think when they come back in the beginning of December, we're going to do that final pass for the areas north of the intercoastal, get it all picked up, and then turn that area back over to River Birch Renewable Energy, who's our typical garbage collector, or garbage contractor, and then work to pick up everything on the southern end. They've begun to haul out the large mountains of trash we've had at the debris sites out to the landfills on Highway 90, so those piles are starting to shrink, which is a good sign as well. It means we're making some progress. But we are still collecting at the Golden Meadow Town Hall, as well as here at our Matthews Government Complex. We're taking down names for private property debris removal, which will be those demolitions, if you don't have insurance, things like that we can take down those houses for you and haul them away, as well as the extended right-of-way debris removal. So if you have something that you just physically can't get to the roadway on our right-of-way, we'll be able to send machines onto your property and get that stuff out. So we still encourage people to come to the Golden Meadow Town Hall and our Matthews Government Complex here in Raceland and fill out that paperwork, get qualified by Whit O'Brien, who's our debris contractors, and then when we come back from the Thanksgiving break, we'll start to work on that. We also have a request for proposals out right now to deal with the bagged waste, the black bags, the white bags, the clear bags, people who have stuffed insulation and stuff like that. Our typical debris contractor will not pick that up because they don't know what's in it and what landfill it actually has to go to. So we're going to issue a separate contract. And again, hopefully after Thanksgiving, we'll be at a verge on that and hit it pretty hard and get all those black bags picked up and get that off the side of the roads as well. But still a bit of work to do. But again, we're making progress every day with hauling out the garbage.
All right, and another, important, or I guess, task that has to be completed or is desperately in need of is dealing with how people who have been displaced or are still trying to get back in their homes or trying to look for somewhere to actually stay. They're staying with family and they can only stay there for so long. Can you give me an update on the housing efforts?
Yeah, so it took about 50 days for us to get FEMA and the state off the ground with it, but those units are slowly starting to roll in. We have about 50 FEMA units on the ground. Some of them are still waiting to be powered up through the energy process, but we do have probably about 15 families who are licensed in and living in those. We have about 80 or 90 of the state campers through the state's program with Aptum on the ground and licensed in, the people living in them. So it's slowly starting to ramp up. They issue more contracts every day for the haul and install contractors to bring them down. We've gotten a bunch of calls over the last couple of days about people asking about their status. It's been a couple of weeks since maybe FEMA reached out and said the unit was coming. It's been a couple of days since they've done the site assessment on your property to make sure that the unit can physically go in your driveway or wherever you requested to put it. So we've been urging people, call our emergency operations center, give us your name, your address, and if you have a FEMA registration number or a state registration number from the state program, we will forward that up the chain and try to get you an answer about where you are. Unfortunately, because of all the federal privacy rules, they can't share that information with us without a whole bunch of red tape. We're slowly getting people, and FEMA is slowly getting people to sign those public information release forms where we can actually physically share that information back and forth now, so it's gotten a little easier. But our FEMA people here in the office with us who are embedded with us still in the Emergency Operations Center, as we get names and addresses, we send them, and we're trying to push them to get some of this stuff moving. So again, if you have questions about your housing status, you can call us. We still encourage you to visit one of the disaster recovery centers, either at the Go Pass site in Golden Meadow or again here at our Matthews Government Complex. Come sit down with FEMA. If you've been denied and you need to appeal it, or you have to bring insurance paperwork or whatever, these are the good places to do it, especially if you're still in a spot that doesn't have internet, especially in South Lafourche. If you can't get to a place that has internet, or you physically you're not computer savvy and tech savvy enough to be able to do it, come ride to Golden Meadow, come ride to Matthews and sit down with those folks, and we'll help you work through the process and get you whatever housing aid we can. If it's not a FEMA trailer, maybe it's a hotel room, maybe it's some of the other suite of options they have. But I know those guys are doing the best they can to help out our residents right now.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, for joining us. That's some helpful information, I'm sure, for those out there that are still in desperate need of that housing. We certainly appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Jacob.
All right. Stay tuned for more right here on HTV.